Admiral Susan Wright sat in the big room of the Galactic Council. The room had tall crystal walls that went up high. Colored lights from many stars came through the glass ceiling. Susan wore her best uniform with gold buttons and medals that showed her rank. She was tired after 3 days of talks that went nowhere. The alien called Traz finished speaking. He was tall and blue with 4 arms. His voice sounded like metal on metal when he talked. All the other aliens in the room nodded their heads or whatever body parts they used to show they agreed. "So you see, humans must understand their place," said Traz. "You are new to space travel. The Galactic Confederation has existed for 50,000 years. You will be allowed to keep your planets, but your ships cannot go past the borders we set. Your weapons must be given to us. Your new inventions must be checked by our science team." Susan looked at Kevin Porter, who sat next to her. Kevin was the main ambassador from Earth. His face stayed calm, but Susan saw his hand grip his pen so hard it almost broke. They both knew what this meant. After 3 years of talks, the aliens still saw humans as children who needed to be controlled. "And in return?" Susan asked. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard her. Traz made a sound like laughing. "In return, you get our protection. You get to be part of the greatest group of planets in the galaxy. Many races would give anything for this chance." Susan opened a small computer on her wrist. She pressed a button. This was the signal they had planned if things went bad. Back on Earth, the president would get the message. The plans they made for this day would start. Kevin stood up. He was not very tall, but he stood straight and proud. "The United Earth government has heard your offer. We have one question before we answer. Is this your final position? Will you not consider us as equals?" The room got quiet. The aliens looked at each other. Traz spoke again. "Equals? You humans reached space travel only 200 years ago. Some of us were traveling between stars when your kind still lived in caves. You will earn equality over time, perhaps in 1,000 years if you learn to follow our rules." Susan stood up next to Kevin. They both knew what would happen next. They had talked about it many times on the trip here. "Then we must decline your offer," said Susan. Her words were simple, but they hit the room like a bomb. No one spoke. No one moved. "What do you mean, decline?" asked a small green alien with big eyes. "No one declines membership in the Confederation." "We do," said Kevin. "Earth and all human colonies reject these terms. We withdraw from these talks. We will go our own way." Susan and Kevin started to pack their papers and computers. The aliens began to talk all at once. Some stood up. Some waved their limbs in the air. "This is not how things work," shouted Traz. "You cannot leave. Watch us," said Susan. She finished packing her bag and looked at the room one last time. All these different aliens from all over the galaxy. Some looked angry. Some looked confused. One, an old alien with long white hair and gray skin, looked worried. This was Elder Vreen of the Mradax people. He was the only one who had treated humans with respect during the talks. Vreen stood up slowly. "Humans, please reconsider. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for a young race alone." Kevin smiled at Vreen. "We appreciate your concern, Elder Vreen. Of all the people here, you alone spoke to us as equals, but we cannot accept these terms. We would rather face danger on our own than live forever as second-class members of your group." Susan and Kevin walked to the big doors of the room. Guards stood there, tall aliens with armor and weapons. For a moment, Susan wondered if they would be stopped by force. "Let them go," said Elder Vreen. "They have the right to choose their own path." The guards stepped aside. Susan and Kevin walked out. They did not look back. On the trip back to their ship, they did not talk much. Both knew what would happen next. Earth had prepared for this. The plans were ready. "Do you think they'll come after us?" asked Kevin when they reached the ship. Susan shook her head. "No. They don't think we're important enough. They think we'll come crawling back when we realize how big and scary the galaxy is." "Their mistake," said Kevin. The human ship lifted off from the space dock. It was small compared to the huge alien ships around it, but it was fast and had technology the aliens didn't know about. Humans had kept many secrets during the talks, for they flew away. Elder Vreen watched from a window in the council building. Unlike the others, he had studied human history. He knew how fast they learned, how hard they worked when challenged. He had read about their wars, their science, their art. He had seen how quickly they went from their first airplane to their first spaceship. "You have made a terrible mistake today," he said quietly to the empty room. "These humans are not like the other races you have bullied and controlled. They will not forget this day." The human ship jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared from view. The Galactic Council went back to its normal business. Most of the aliens forgot about the humans by the next day, but Elder Vreen did not forget, and neither did humanity. On Earth, the president got Susan's message and called a meeting. The plans they had made in secret could now begin. Humanity would show the galaxy what they could do on their own, and the galaxy would learn its mistake. 5 years passed since humans walked away from the Galactic Confederation. On most alien worlds, people forgot about the small pink species that had refused to join. The Confederation had over 300 different alien races, and humans were just one small group from a far corner of the galaxy. Laura Nelson stood on the bridge of her ship, the Horizon. She looked through the big window at the empty space ahead, but it would not be empty for long. "All systems ready, Commander?" asked Greg Phillips, her second in command. Greg was tall, with dark skin and a friendly smile, but today he looked serious. "All systems go," said Laura. "Project Diaspora is ready. Tell the science team to start the countdown." Greg spoke into his wrist computer. On the other side of the ship, 50 scientists watched screens full of numbers and colors. They had worked for 5 years to reach this day. "This is it," said Laura quietly. "If this works, everything changes." Far away, in a part of space no human had ever visited, a small machine started to glow. It was shaped like a ring, about the size of a car. The machine spun faster and faster, then a blue light filled the middle of the ring. The light grew until it was a perfect circle. Back on the horizon, the main screen showed the same blue circle appearing in front of the ship. "Bridge is stable," said a scientist over the radio. "All readings are in the green zone." Laura took a deep breath. "Send the probe through." A small robot the size of a dog flew from the ship toward the blue circle. It went into the light and disappeared. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. 10 seconds passed. 20. "Probe signal received," shouted Greg. "It's on the other side. Distance confirmed at 4.3 light years. The bridge works." People on the bridge cheered and hugged each other. Laura smiled. Humans had just changed the rules of space travel forever. The Confederation used wormhole gates to travel between stars. These gates took 20 years to build and needed the rare metal zethium to work. The Confederation controlled all the zethium in known space, and they thought this gave them power over all space travel. But humans had found another way. Their new Einstein-Rosen bridges did not need zethium. They could be built in weeks, not years, and they could be moved to new places if needed. Later that day, Laura sent a message to Earth. "Project Diaspora is a success. We can begin Phase 2. On Earth, Carl Hoffman read the message in a room deep under the Rocky Mountains. Carl was the fleet admiral, the highest officer in the human space forces. He had gray hair and many scars from the wars on Earth before humans became united. "Good," he said to the room full of military and science leaders. "Start building the bridge network. I want 100 bridge generators ready in 6 months. A woman raised her hand. "What about the Confederation? Won't they notice what we're doing?" Carl shook his head. "They're not watching us. They think we're stuck in our little corner of space licking our wounds. By the time they notice, it will be too late." In the next year, humans built more bridge generators than they could count. Small ships went through the bridges to find new planets. When they found good planets with metals or water or places to live, bigger ships followed. Humans built space stations and mining robots. The robots dug metals from asteroids and moons. The metals were used to build more ships and more robots, which built more bridges to more stars. No one in the Confederation noticed. Their big ships stayed on the main space roads. the places where they had built their wormhole gates. They didn't look at the empty spaces between, the places they thought had nothing worth finding. But humans looked everywhere. They found riches, in the places the aliens ignored. 8 years after humans left the Confederation talks, a Muradax trading ship called Bright Opportunity was taking a shortcut through empty space. The Captain Merez was breaking rules by going this way, but it would save time and fuel. "Captain," called one of the crew, "there's something ahead, something big." Merez looked at the screen. In the middle of nowhere was a giant space station. Around it flew hundreds of ships. Behind it was a big blue circle of light. A bridge, but not like any bridge Merez had seen before. "Hail them," said Merez. "Find out who they are." A face appeared on the screen. It was a human face. "Greetings, Muradax vessel," said the human. "I'm Captain Frank Miller of the human ship Pathfinder. Welcome to Bridge Nexus 7. Merez could not believe it. Humans were not supposed to be here, in this empty part of space. They were supposed to be far away, struggling without the help of the Confederation. How is this possible?" asked Merez. Captain Miller smiled. "Would you like to dock and see for yourself? We welcome visitors." The Muradax ship docked at the huge station. Merez and his crew stepped out, looking around with wide eyes. The station was clean and new. Humans of all colors and sizes walked around. Some aliens Merez had never seen before walked with them. "This station connects 17 star systems," explained Captain Miller as he showed Merez around. "We found them all in the last 3 years, good systems with planets no one had claimed. But the Confederation surveys all space," said Merez. "They would know about these planets." "The Confederation is slow," said Miller. "Their ships only go where they already have wormhole gates. We go everywhere." Merez sent a message back to his homeworld. The message reached Elder Vreen, who was now a senior diplomat. Vreen had never forgotten the humans who walked away. When he read Merez's report, he knew he had to see for himself. A week later, Vreen arrived at the human station. Captain Miller showed him everything. Vreen saw their bridges, their mining robots, their ships that could build more ships. "How many systems do humans control now?" asked Vreen. "Over 200, said Miller. "Maybe more by now. We find new ones every week." Vreen felt cold fear in his stomach. In just 8 years, humans had expanded more than some races did in 1,000 years. And they had done it all without the Confederation knowing. "The Council should be told," said Vreen. "They need to know." Miller shrugged. "Tell them if you want. We're not hiding, but we're not asking for permission either." When Vreen returned to the Confederation capital, he told the Council everything. They didn't believe him. "Impossible," said Traz, who was now the head of the Council. "No race can expand that fast. No one can build bridges without Zethium. The human must have tricked you." But Vreen knew what he had seen, and he knew the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. 12 years had passed since humans walked away from the Galactic Confederation. On the edge of known space, a small ship flew alone. Inside, a blue alien with 6 eyes looked at the screens around him. His name was Jax, and he worked for the EA Confederation as a scout. "Nothing here," said Jax to himself. He was tired. For 3 months he had been checking this empty part of space. His bosses had sent him after an old Muradax named Vreen, kept telling stories about humans building things, where nothing should be. Jax didn't believe the stories, but he had to check. That was his job. He was about to turn his ship around when one of his screens lit up with a warning. "Energy spike, out here?" Jax moved his ship closer to where the reading came from. Suddenly a huge blue circle of light appeared in front of him. It was a bridge, but not like any bridge Jax had seen before. It had no gate around it, no big machines to hold it open. Before Jax could do anything, a large ship came through the bridge, then another, and another. Soon 20 ships were in front of him. They were sleek and gray with blue lights along their sides. Human ships. Jax's radio made a noise. Someone was calling him. "Confederation scout ship. This is Captain Sam Riley. Of the Earth Fleet. You've entered restricted space. Please state your business. Jax's hands shook as he answered. I'm on a routine patrol. I didn't know this was restricted. No one told me. There was a pause. You're a long way from home, Scout, said the human captain. Our sensors show no other Confederation ships within 50 light years. I'm alone, said Jax. His voice was small now. We're sending you coordinates for a meeting place, said Captain. Riley, follow us. Admiral Reeves wants to speak with you. Jax had no choice. His little ship followed the human fleet through the strange bridge. On the other side was something impossible. A star system full of life, space stations bigger than cities, thousands of ships, and in the middle, a blue and green planet covered in lights. What is this place? Asked Jax. We call it New Hope, said Captain Riley. It's one of our newer colonies. Only been here about 5 years. 5 years? Jax couldn't believe it. It would take the Confederation 50 years to build this much. Jax's ship docked at a space station. He was taken to a room where a human with white hair and a uniform full of medals waited. I'm Admiral Reeves, said the human. Welcome to human space. I thought human space was just one star system with a few small colonies, said Jax. Admiral Reeves smiled. That was 12 years ago. Things change. The Admiral showed Jax maps on a big screen. They showed hundreds of star systems connected by the strange bridges. Human ships could go from one end to the other in days, not the months or years it took Confederation ships. Why are you showing me this? Asked Jax. Because it's time, said the Admiral. Time for the Confederation to know we're here. Time to talk again. Jax was sent back to the Confederation with a message. When he arrived, he was taken straight to the council room. All the most powerful aliens sat in their big chairs looking down at him. Tell us what you saw, said Traz, still the head of the council after all these years. Jax told them everything. About the bridges with no gates, about New Hope and the hundreds of colonies, about ships that could build more ships and robots, that could build more robots. They want to talk, finished Jax. They say they're ready. Traz made an angry sound. Ready? They think they can ignore us for 12 years and then say they're ready? The Confederation decides who talks and when. Elder, Vreen stood up. He was very old now, but his voice was still strong. You still don't understand, do you? He said to Traz. Humans don't need our permission anymore. They've grown stronger than we could imagine. We should listen to them now, before it's too late. Nonsense, said Traz. They're bluffing. One human system with a few fancy tricks can't stand against the might of the Confederation. Just then, the doors to the council room opened. A human woman walked in. She had dark skin and wore a simple gray uniform with no marks or medals. 2 human guards walked behind her. Who are you? Demanded Traz. How dare you enter this chamber without permission? My name is Nicole Bell, said the woman. I'm an admiral in the United Earth Fleet. I'm here because time is running out. Time for what? Asked a small green alien. The hive mind is coming, said Admiral Bell. They've already destroyed 3 of our outer colonies. They'll reach your space in less than a month. The room got very quiet. Everyone had heard of the hive mind. They were not part of the Confederation. They lived far away, beyond known space. They didn't talk or trade. They only destroyed. The hive mind is just a story, said Traz, but his voice was not strong anymore. Admiral Bell took a small device from her pocket and placed it on the floor. A light came from it, showing a picture in the air. The picture showed a black ship, shaped like a claw. Then it showed hundreds of these ships attacking a human colony. Buildings fell. People ran. In the end, the planet was left gray and dead. This happened 1 week ago at our colony on Delta Eridani, said Admiral Bell. The hive mind is real and they're coming here next. Why would they attack the Confederation? Asked someone. We've done nothing to them. They don't need a reason, said Admiral Bell. They destroy everything they find. It's what they do. Elder Vreen moved closer to the human. Why have you come to warn us? We did not treat your people well. Admiral Bell looked at him. Some of you tried to understand us. That counts for something. Besides, the hive mind is a threat to all life, not just humans or the Confederation. We need to work together. Traz made a sound like he was choking. Work together? You expect us to work? With you? You're nothing. You walked away. Admiral Bell did not get angry. She just looked at Traz with calm eyes. Yes, we walked away, and in the 12 years since then, we've built an empire bigger than you can imagine. We have technologies you don't understand. We have ships that could destroy this planet without landing, but we're not here to fight you. We're here to save you. The room was silent again. Even Traz had no words. The hive mind will be here in 27 days, said Admiral Bell. You have until then to decide if your pride is worth more than your lives. She turned and walked out with her guards. The council room stayed quiet for a long time after she left. Elder Vreen looked at the other council members. Now do you understand? Now do you see our mistake? No one answered. But they all knew. The humans they had treated like children had grown up, and now the galaxy needed them more than they needed the galaxy. The Confederation Council argued for 3 days after Admiral Bell left. Some wanted to ignore the human warning. Others wanted to run and hide. A few thought they should try to fight the hive mind alone. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy, said Traz. We don't need human help. Elder Vreen shook his head. Our ships are spread across 20,000 worlds. It would take months to gather them. The hive mind will be here in 24 days now. In the end, they had no choice. The Confederation called Admiral Bell back to the council room. We accept your offer of help, said Traz. His voice sounded like the words hurt his mouth. What do you want in return? Admiral Bell looked at each face in the room. Nothing. We don't help because we want something. We help because it's the right thing to do. Plans were made quickly. Human bridge ships arrived at key Confederation worlds. They set up their strange bridges that needed no gates. Soon, Confederation ships could move quickly from one world to another, getting ready for the fight ahead. The biggest Confederation warships were sent to the border where the hive mind would arrive. These ships were huge, some as big as small moons. The aliens were proud of these ships and thought they could stop anything. Where are the human warships? Asked Traz. We see your bridge makers and supply ships, but where are your fighters? Admiral Bell stood on the bridge of the Confederation flagship. Through the window they could see 1,000 Confederation warships floating in space. They're coming, said Admiral Bell. They'll be here when needed. 20 days later, the first hive mind ships appeared. They looked like giant black claws, moving through space. There were hundreds of them, then thousands. Begin attack, ordered the Confederation fleet commander. The Confederation ships fired their weapons. Bright beams of energy hit the hive mind ships. Some of the black ships broke apart, but most kept coming. They moved faster than anyone expected. They're breaking through our first line, said a Confederation officer. The hive mind ships reached the Confederation fleet. They didn't fire weapons from far away. Instead, they grabbed onto the bigger ships with their claw shapes. Then smaller ships came out of the big ones, like insects from a nest. These small ships cut into the Confederation ships and poured out soldiers that looked like big black spiders. The battle turned into a nightmare. Confederation ships sent emergency calls as they were taken over one by one. The proud fleet was being destroyed. Where are your ships? Traz shouted at Admiral Bell. You promised help. Admiral Bell touched her wrist computer. All units, execute. Operation Firewall. Suddenly, the space around the battle lit up with blue circles. Hundreds of bridges opened at once. From each bridge came dozens of human ships. These weren't big like the Confederation ships. They were smaller and faster, built for fighting. The human ships moved in perfect groups, cutting through the hive mind forces. When a human ship was damaged, it retreated through a bridge, and a new one took its place. Behind the fighting ships came other human vessels. These were oval-shaped and covered in silver. They flew up to captured Confederation ships and attached themselves. What are those? Asked a Confederation officer. Cleaners, said Admiral Bell. They're full of combat robots. They'll clear out the hive mind soldiers inside your ships. The tide of battle began to turn. Human ships surrounded groups of hive mind vessels and destroyed them. The cleaners took back Confederation ships one by one, but the hive mind kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. The Confederation capital world was still in danger. "We need more ships," said Traz. Admiral Bell nodded. "I agree." She spoke into her wrist computer again. "This is Admiral Bell, requesting phase 2 support." The space above the Confederation capital world changed again. This time a single bridge appeared, but it was enormous, big enough for a small moon to pass through, and something did come through. A human ship so large that it made the biggest Confederation vessel look tiny. "What is that?" whispered Traz. "That's the Earth ship Unity," said Admiral Bell. "Our first planet-class vessel." The Unity moved, slowly toward the battle. It didn't look like it was made for speed. But as it got closer, parts of it began to open. Thousands of smaller ships flew out from its hangars. Other parts of the giant ship glowed as weapon systems charged up. "All ships, clear the target zone," ordered Admiral Bell. The Unity fired, not beams or missiles, but something else. A wave of energy moved out from the giant ship in all directions. When it touched a hive mind vessel, the black ship simply fell apart into dust. But it passed through human and Confederation ships without harming them. The battle space cleared in minutes. The remaining hive mind ships tried to retreat, but the human bridges had closed their escape routes. None survived. The Unity hung in space above the Confederation capital, so big it almost blocked out the sun. People on the planet below could see it with their naked eyes, like a new moon in the sky. In the council room, no one spoke for a long time. They had just watched their mighty fleet nearly destroyed, only to be saved by humans, the same humans they had treated like children 12 years ago. "How?" Traz finally asked. "How did you grow so powerful so quickly?" Admiral Bell sat down for the first time since entering the room. She looked tired but satisfied. "When we walked away from your table, we had a choice," she said. "We could feel sorry for ourselves, or we could work harder than ever before. We chose to work. Every human world, every colony, every ship focused on one goal: to prove you wrong." Elder Vreen nodded slowly. "And we gave you the greatest gift without knowing it." "What gift?" asked a Confederation member. "Freedom," said Elder Vreen. "Freedom from rules that would have held them back. Freedom to grow in their own way." Admiral Bell smiled at the old alien. "You always did understand us better than the others." "Is the hive mind defeated?" asked Traz. Admiral Bell's smile faded. "No. What you saw was just their first wave. Their main fleet is still coming. This battle was just the beginning." The council room grew quiet again as the aliens realized what this meant. The fight for survival had only just begun, and their only hope was the humans they had once rejected. 6 months passed since the first battle with the hive mind. The war spread across the galaxy. Every day brought news of fights on new worlds. Some were won, some were lost. The huge human ship Unity became the center of the defense plan. It moved from battle to battle through special large bridges, bringing help where it was most needed. Smaller human ships went everywhere, using their bridges to appear and disappear like magic. The Confederation planets that once looked down on humans now cheered when human ships arrived. Children played with toys shaped like the Unity. People told stories about brave human captains who saved alien worlds. On the Confederation capital world, Susan Wright stepped into the council room. She was older now, with gray hair and lines on her face. She had been the first human to walk away from the Confederation table 13 years ago. Now she was back as the main human ambassador. "Welcome, Ambassador Wright," said Elder Vreen. He was one of the few council members who had survived from the old days. Traz was gone, killed when hive mind ships attacked his homeworld. "Thank you, Elder," said Susan. "I wish we could meet in better times." The room had changed. It was no longer just for council members to sit and talk. Now it was filled with maps and screens showing battles across the galaxy. Human and alien officers worked side by side. "The main hive mind fleet has been found," said a human officer named Paul Green. He pointed to a spot on the big map. "They're gathering here in the dark space area. Our scouts count over 10,000 ships." 10,000? said an alien council SEAL member. "We can't stop that many, even with human help." Susan looked at the map. "We don't have to stop them all at once. We need to split their forces." She explained her plan. The Unity and other big ships would attack the hive mind from one side. Meanwhile, smaller, faster ships would go behind the hive mind fleet and attack their supply lines. "If we cut off their supplies, they'll have to send ships to protect them," said Susan. "That will weaken their main attack force." "It's a good plan," said Elder Vreen. "But it means leaving some Confederation worlds unprotected while we gather our forces." Susan nodded. "Some worlds may be lost, but if we don't stop the main fleet, all worlds will be lost." It was a hard choice, but the Council agreed. The plan began. Human and Confederation ships moved into position. The Unity led the largest group of ships ever seen in the galaxy. The battle started 3 days later. The Unity and its fleet hit the hive mind ships from the front. At the same time, fast human ships jumped through bridges to attack from behind. The plan worked at first. The hive mind split their forces to fight on two sides. But there were so many enemy ships. Hour after hour, the battle got harder. Human and Confederation ships were destroyed one by one. In the council room, Susan and the others watched the battle on big screens. The news was not good. "The Unity is taking heavy damage," reported an officer. "The hive mind is focusing all fire on it." On the screen, they could see the huge human ship surrounded by black hive mind vessels. Parts of the Unity were broken or burning, but it still fought, its weapons destroying enemy ships with each shot. "The Unity needs to retreat," said a council member. "If it's destroyed, we lose our strongest weapon." Susan shook her head. "The Unity won't retreat. If it leaves, the whole line will break. Every ship behind it will be destroyed." The room was quiet as everyone watched the battle. The Unity fought on, even as pieces of it broke off into space. Around it, hundreds of smaller human ships moved like a shield, protecting the giant vessel as best they could. "Look!" shouted an officer. "New bridges are opening." The screens showed blue circles of light appearing around the battle. From them came ships of all sizes and shapes, but these weren't human or Confederation ships. They were from races no one had seen before. "Who are they?" asked Elder Vreen. Susan smiled. "They're our friends, races we met during our expansion, races the Confederation never found or never cared about. We helped them grow. Now they've come to help us." The new ships joined the battle. They had strange weapons and moved in ways no one had seen before. The hive mind ships, facing attacks from 3 sides now, began to break apart. Slowly the tide turned. The black ships retreated or were destroyed. After 2 more days of fighting, the main hive mind fleet was defeated. In the council room, everyone cheered. But Susan stayed quiet. She knew what victory had cost. Thousands of ships and lives had been lost. Many worlds had been damaged or destroyed. 1 month later, Susan stood in the same room where she and Kevin had walked away 13 years ago. The room had been rebuilt after being damaged in the fighting. Now it looked much like it had before, with its high crystal walls and view of the stars, but everything else had changed. The chairs around the table were no longer arranged with Confederation members at the top and others below. Now all chairs were the same height, in a circle. Representatives from human worlds sat next to those from old Confederation planets and the new races that had joined the fight. Elder Vreen stood to speak. "For 50,000 years, the Confederation has ruled the galaxy. We thought our way was the only way. We were wrong." He looked at Susan. "Humans showed us a different path. When we offered them a place beneath us, they chose to walk away. They built their own future, and in doing so, they saved us all." Susan stood up. "What happened is past. Now we must look forward, not as rulers and ruled, but as equals, not as the Confederation, but as a new alliance of all free worlds." She placed a new agreement on the table. It promised freedom for all worlds to grow in their own way. It promised help for those who needed it. It promised respect for all races, no matter how old or young. One by one, the representatives signed. Human signatures next to alien marks of all kinds. A new chapter in the story of the galaxy had begun. As Susan left the room, Elder Vreen walked beside her. "Did you plan this all along?" he asked quietly. "When you walked away, did you know you would return one day as equals?" Susan smiled. "No. We just knew we deserved better than what was offered. Everything else we built step by step, day by day." They looked up at the sky, where ships of all kinds moved between the stars. Some were human, some were alien. All were part of something new. "Sometimes," said Susan, "the best way forward is to walk away first."